Hi dear audience, in this short video we would be discussing the existentialism. First we would be discussing its major thoughts and the concerns regarding philosophy, and then later on in the English literature and as a literary movement as well. Before going to proceed on the very complex web and meaning of this philosophy, I would just trace out back into the past that how man has been understanding the world. If we look at the our Renaissance literature, or before to that, or even our on Greek literature, or under some classical definition of our tragedy, classical tragic hero as well. In the Platonian concept, we see that, however, fate has been some having some important position in the decision and the catastrophe of the man. And in that tragedy, fate was considered as the central element regarding. Even to some extent, for example, if we say that hamartia is the tragic flaw which causes the tragedy, and due to the hamartia, any character can fall to the victim of the circumstances or the tragic situations. Even that hamartia or the tragic flaw is controlled to some extent by the fate or some external factors. So, in our previous literature, since the Greeks, there have been an understanding that there are some external factors that may be the nature, that may be the emotions of the person, that might be the sociology of the persons, that which contributes in the development of the character of that person. They are the external factors which are the cause of the hamartia, tragedy, or whatsoever. To some extent, these external factors include the concept of fate as well. While man has been moving from all these pagans and the constructs of the philosophy, but in the 20th, 19th, and later in the 20th, 19th, and the 20th century, man has felt some sort of isolation when on one side the development of civic sense centers, city centers have been developing, market centers have been developing, and man has been moving from the rural areas to the urban areas. Urban centers have been established, but during all that process, man has been feeling the self isolation. Uh, and on that, man could be, it has been the thought that man is responsible for all his actions, and if some tragedy happens to the man, that it's not only because of some external factors, it's only because of his own actions, what he has done. So basically, existentialism, we would be discussing some two major concepts of this philosophy. One is that existence is the epitome of everything. Existence is more than any other philosophy, than any other identity. For example, an existentialist thinks that I exist. If I exist, then I would be doing all the other things. If I do not exist, then I cannot even think. I cannot flourish. I cannot reason myself to the world. I cannot prove my potential to the world. So, from the perspective of existentialist, existence is very important, and existence is preferred over every other sphere of life. Therefore, they say, the very repeated dictum is that existence precedes essence, means essence are the some other identities, are lineage, are the constructs of identities, are your referential systems, but existence is most important for all these. So this movement basically shifted the man's belief from the outer world on the self. Self means self of the man, and it also, on the other layer, it has developed an understanding of free thought, means that freedom and responsibility. uh, Similarly, the existential literature which have been by this understanding was more of the freedom and the responsibility. They cannot see, for example, if I talk by at this time of the waiting for Godot, uh, for what they have been waiting for Godot, but Godot never comes. Godot here is an external thing as well. There have been a lot of questions that who is Godot. Some people say that Godot is the hope. Some people say that Godot is a mythical character. Some people say that Godot is the future of something which never happens to the man. Some people say that Godot is a reference or the symbol of happiness which never comes to any man. Even this question was asked to the writer of this play as well, but he himself replied that I do not know. Beckett replied that I don't know who is Godot. Even he said that if I had been knowing the Godot, then I would have been mentioning it in my play. But he said, Beckett has said that I don't know who is the Godot in this play. Means he is denying the conformity of the Godot as a character. So this movement more focus on the freedom and responsibility of the man himself, means man is more responsible of his own actions. This is basically a short background of this movement. Now we see the very classical definition and understanding of that movement. Existentialism is a philosophical approach that rejects the idea that the universe offers any clue about how the humanity should live. Means uh, existentialists are of the view that it is up to the man that how he has to uh, shape his life, his or her lives or whatsoever, their livelihood. There is not any referential. From here, the word referential, I mean under not any instructed pattern or any instructed command which has been given to man to rule the world according to that rule. Means it's totally up to the humans how they proceeds their liveliness. For example, if the people living in America, they have their own understanding of humanity. They have their own understanding of sociology, social life as well. While the people living in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or some in other third world countries, they have their own clues of humanity. Therefore, to live on the earth is not controlled by a single monolithic rule. Therefore, here is a space of diversified. In the simplified understanding of this thought system, can be found in Jean-Paul Sartre's often repeated dictum, means existence precedes essence, means our existence is more important and it's our existence that gives to our all other identities. Here essence means reference, identities or whatsoever, our actions as well. What this means is that the identity of any one person, means their essence, identity means essence, cannot be found by examining what other people are like. Means my essence, my identity cannot be compared with the identity of others, but on my own actions, what I have done, in what sort of the situation do I live. Actually, for example, by looking at a person's at the situation in which a person is visible to us, we usually put some sort of label of identity on the existence of a person. For example, if a person is living in Africa, uh, we usually refer, and he's in a miserable condition as well, then definitely we would be drawing a conclusion that he's the poor, he's in a miserable situation, he's not living a human life, and all these. Uh, Similarly, our existence is, product. Our existence is the referential system of our identities, because no one can claim that his or her actions are caused by someone else. That's very important. Means we understand from the people what the particular persons has done by the actions are more important rather than any other agenda. Therefore, existentialist literature focus on the freedom and the responsibilities. Means man, anyone. For example, I am responsible of my own actions, and I am free of my own responses and actions as well. Means I have no underlying pressure from the outer world, or which is going to control my actions. I am free in my actions, and I am responsible of my actions as well. That's the basically major underlying dictum, or the underlying line of philosophy of this movement. Existentialism attained the height of its popularity in France during World War II. The main reason behind this is that the German army had occupied the countries, and the philosophers and the writers who had gathered to discuss and argue their ideas at the cafe in the Paris captured the attention of the intellectuals. Basically, Jean-Paul Sartre has been one of these intellectuals who narrated this movement around the world. The oppressive political climate under the Nazis and the need for underground resistance to the invading political force provided the ideal background for the existentialist focus on the individual actions and the responsibility. These are the two basic referential. For example, if you are asked that what is the major focus of existentialism, that the answer to that question is that it focuses on the individual actions. Means individual is free in his own actions, and the sense of responsibility of a one person. Means we are not bounded by some external factors, as we have been believing on the fate, on the some external hamartias, which used to be the center or the heart of our classical tragedies. So, although the French war era writers are most frequently associated with existentialism, its root begin much earlier. I mean, in the France, and from that means people have been even before the Nietzsche is to some extent considered as the contributor of this philosophy as well. Existentialism can be seen as a response to frightening loneliness. Means why this movement has been uprising, due to the frightening loneliness that prompted Friedrich Nietzsche to pronounce in the 1980s that 1880s that God is dead. Means there is no external order here. God never means that God to whom we worship, but here the God means the goodness, the social mutual understanding, trust, all that. God is the symbol of all these things. God is the symbol of love. God is a symbol of mutual understanding. God is a symbol of peace as well. So, according to this announcement that God is dead, means that there is no peace in this world, there is no charm in this world. Man has more been subject to the loneliness. People's loss of faith in the religious and social order created an understanding of the personal responsibility. Means as there is, it's very interesting to locate one's own responsibility on some other as well. For example, even in the past, when the man was unable to control any of the situation, then he puts that responsibility, or he shifts that responsibility on some other creature. That's definitely the supernatural creature, means the God. Then all these philosophers, including the Nietzsche and Sartre, they have said, or they have been arguing the people to make and keep in mind that we are responsible for our actions, not our gods are responsible for our actions. Means we are responsible for we are free. The freedom of an individual means is very important, is the center of this movement. Means if we are free to our actions, then definitely we are responsible to our actions as well. So which is to literary works that reflects the existentialist loneliness, isolation, and the fear of the uncaring universe. Means the word is more and uncaring. Even in Russian literature, we see the Dostoevsky's novels written in 1860s and 70s show the existentialist themes, as do the 20th century works by Franz Kafka, Ernest Hemingway, James Baldwin, Nantil West. And the French existentialists were so influential writers elsewhere in the Europe and in the United States that many contemporary philosophical works show some influence of their thought as well. Means on this movement, this is not a France-based movement, though the contribution of the French philosopher is very important. Out of these, Nietzsche and Jean-Paul Sartre are included, but they have been writing with so influence that people across the world perceive that this is a French-based influence movement. The case is not so. Means it has been working on the other countries as well. It has been for example, Ernest Hemingway and the other American writers have been focusing on this theme as well. And now we moving to the conclusion, we can say that this movement started in the later 20th century 20th century and the 21st century. It was basically the result of the isolation felt by men or the authors of that time during the World War II, and it was not a sudden movement. The writers have been sensing this pulse since 1880s, 80s, 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s, and it was being felt by the writers across the continents. It was being felt by the writers in the France. It was being felt by the writers in America and even in the Great Britain as well. So the major postulation or assumption of this movement are the freedom of one's own, personal freedom, and a sense of responsibility. It takes the man as responsible of his own action and the fate as well. So this movement shift the order of burden of mistakes on one's own, who is the doer of any action. Means man himself is the responsible of his actions, whether that is they are the good or the bad. This is basically the major underlying focus of the existentialist movement. With this, I would be seeking permission from you. Goodbye. Take care.